Okay. You hit on something which is really interesting, and I want to expand on that a little bit. Is that you talked about the difference between smaller companies and larger companies, and obviously the larger companies have more resources to deal with the international issues and so forth. Putting that to the side, can you talk a little bit about the differences in the overall recruiting process between large companies and small companies? Not necessarily for international students, but just in general. How is that different for large companies and small companies?
Yeah, I would say the biggest difference is if you get a company that's say under 100 employees, startup, tech startup, they will often not have a fully robust internal HR staff. So maybe at 50, 60 employees, they'll have like this is what I see. This is personal. This is what I see. I deal a lot with ad tech, martech. When you talk about tech startups, some fintech, there is a recruiter consultant that comes on when they start getting that Series B round of funding. So we're talking 20 employees to 50 employees, and they're typically just coordinating. So they're working with external recruiters, and the processes can be very screwed up. As well-meaning as they mean to be, and as great as these companies are going to be, they just don't have the infrastructure yet. And when approaching those companies, I would absolutely say go direct to the hiring manager, as often as you can. And then what will happen is, and be smart when you go approach a hiring manager. Like, don't hit him him or her in the middle of the day. Like, get them at coffee time in the morning, or in the evening when they're kind of relaxed a little bit, because you'll get pushed aside probably, and you get no attention again. So it's like nuanced attention, and you really got to focus on all of it, and timing with that is important. So as you get a little bit bigger, so let's say 50 to 100 employees, usually you're getting an HR permanent staff, maybe one recruiter internally, and the process now starts to get a little better because it has to. There's much more hiring going on, and so there's complaints, and then they have a system, and things get a little bit better. I can still say, when possible, go directly to the hiring manager. If you're getting ignored, try the recruiter, or if the recruiter, like myself, clearly appears to just specialize, especially as the companies get bigger, you may want to go to the recruiter, because if the recruiter, in my case, it gets to the point where if I have a good relationship, my relationships will last many, many years, and I'll know the company as well as they do, and they'll start to really trust me. And since I'm driving the process, I'm as good as having a connection inside the company. Now, that's something you may want to ask your recruiter. How long have you worked with these guys? And if it's, I always tell my candidates, like, I've been working with these guys forever, I know them really well, or, hey, bear with me, I just signed them last month, I believe in them, but I don't know the total process. We're working together here. I mean, ultimately, it's always nice to have a recruiter who knows what they're doing, to help navigate, to help push the ball forward when it can get delayed, and it often will, to be the communication and especially the negotiations. Oftentimes these firms, they need recruit. They have a recruiting budget. It's not like you're not gonna, and you're that I think there's that misconception that if you can go around the recruiter, that maybe you'll get an extra $10,000 or $20,000 or something like that. And I can tell you that 9 times out of 10 you will not. There's a budget for recruiting, and there's a budget for salaries and bonuses. And yes, the market will dictate how much they pay you, and sometimes like that, things like that. But the recruiting budget is separate, and because you didn't use us, you don't get the extra money that they saved, kind of a thing. So, I would say, so with the larger clients, I don't see. It's typically just a few more. There's one more hurdle to pass. Almost always, if it's a large company, especially Fortune 500, you have to deal with HR as your first step. So we always have an HR counterpart. While I know all, if we're building out a data science team at a Fortune 500, 100, whatever it may be, I will know the chief data scientist. I will have either I knew him before, or we'll get to know him. But then once the process starts, then we have to deal with submitting your information into a system, dealing with the recruiter, who's our counterpart, who's responsible for the hiring of that position or positions. And there's almost always a screen call with that recruiter. So if it will feel like you're doing double time. You'll do one call with us, which is broad, and then you'll do another call, which is probably about 30 minutes with them, so that they can put their stamp of approval. Now, same thing as before I was telling you, when we work with larger companies over an extended period, trust builds up, and they will bypass. They won't bother with that internal call. They'll push it right to a tech call or business. And but the process, generally speaking, Fortune 100. Sorry, my power's going out. Down to startup is pretty similar once you hit a certain size, in terms of rounds, what goes on in those rounds. Most of the time, I see a initial call, a get to know you call, whether that's with business person or the recruiter, a tech call with somebody who's got the tech chops to ask you the key questions, then a deeper round of sort of a technical interview, working with the core people you're going to work with. Sometimes there's a take-home assignment in between before that, and then that's that longer interview. It's usually about a half a day. And on occasion, there's a fourth round, which would be maybe with the CEO of a company or the group head, one-on-one, half hour, just to get that thumbs up to make sure he or she is saying, I've met this person, I believe they'll work well here. And of course, if it's a high spot, then that's definitely going to happen. And if it's a lower level person, it may not need to happen. So I still think, especially fresh out of school, PhD or master's, is, to the extent you can, you want to figure out a way to get the attention of the hiring managers, not the recruiters.
Okay, good to know.
But you have to play ball with the way the initial attention. You should go to your direct audience, end audience is, to get their attention. And then, and you can't do this for every company. You can do it for, you only have so much time. You only have, to do this kind of thing. So you just want to, pick your top 20, maybe 50, and try to go direct. And the rest of them, you're just going to hear from recruiters, and you're going to get pitched, and in the end, you're going to have to go through the same process as everybody else, but to take action. I often say to people, it's the beginning of the interview process. How did you go about finding their name and doing the research and getting their email address, and then you figured out how to pitch. And was your pitch good? You have your elevator pitch down. Were you convincing? Can you sell yourself? Can you sell your ideas? That's already step one of the interview process. process, and if you do that well, then you're going to get a lot more open doors. Is basically what it comes down to. And why not try a couple of those with some companies you don't really care about first, and make your mistakes, and then hone it and get better at it.